So Rachel Maddow, the war pig and the lapdog to power, who's been lying to you since she got that show. She's the biggest propagandist on TV, and that's saying something. She's a bigger propagandist than Sean Hannity. I mean, that is saying something.
Yes.
And so listen to what she has to say about Donald Trump being thrown off the ballot in Colorado. Listen to what she says.
We're all just trying to absorb this. Listen, I think in the broad strokes, in terms of our democracy, there are very few magic wands.
When she says magic wands, does she mean besides censorship?
Yeah, I think we just got the one.
Has anyone tried the magic of giving half a shit about their own citizens and not just rich donors? It sounds counterintuitive, Kurt, but it just might work.
Magic isn't real, Jimmy.
There are very few sort of magic spells that you cast that make a complex and difficult problem go away. It just doesn't happen very often in our political system.
And so she's calling Donald Trump a very complicated and difficult problem.
How do you solve a problem like Maria?
So that's what she's saying. So she's saying that his political movement and Donald Trump himself are a very complicated and difficult problem. And she wishes the establishment had a magic wand to make it go away.
Yeah, well, that's how you know this ain't going to stand, because she's not saying the walls are closing in like she usually would.
Right, that's right. Here we go.
I think that we shouldn't be under any illusions about the character and the partisan inclinations, among other things, of this current Supreme Court as it is constituted.
Not Colorado.
So she's talking about this U.S. Supreme Court being partisan, not thing that happened. Not the Colorado Supreme Court that just did this, even though every one of them's a Democrat.
This is one of her less crazy statements, by the way, because she is saying it's not going to work.
Yes. She is saying that the Supreme Court will overturn this, but here we go.
That said, this is not a crazy thing for a democracy to do. This is this.
Well, Rachel, It's not a crazy thing for our democracy to do, since we live in a banana republic that is trying to rig an election to keep a demented half a corpse in power. No, it's not crazy.
For a democracy, but for this particular one, it's not crazy. If it was like a Nicaragua, a normal democracy, where they can count votes, and it's not that complicated, that's different. But we have a dead guy who's in office, a whole bunch of senile people, sloth from the Goonies who can't even talk, who just came out as not progressive, and they're using all the state power to keep Weekend at Bernie's 2. We're going past Weekend at Bernie's. We're going straight to Weekend at Bernie's 2.
Wow. This is not abnormal or unheard of to exclude a candidate from the ballot, especially one that is dangerous to our democracy, as crass and unreasonable as Donald Trump. Oh, my God. Yeah, just ask Bernie Sanders, because they did that to him in 2016 in the primary. Don't look into that. In fact, don't even ask Bernie Sanders, because if you ask Bernie Sanders about anything right now, he'll ask you who's paying you.
He just wants to keep his wife out of jail.
That's right. He just wants to keep his wife out of jail. That's why Bernie can't tell the truth about anything.
This is something that was a hallmark of post-war Germany after World War II. This is something that happened to Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil quite recently.
So wait, I'm going to back it up and play without stop, because what she says at the end, I have a lot to say about. Here we go.
We're all just trying to absorb this. Listen, I think in the broad strokes, in terms of our democracy, there are very few magic wands. there are very few sort of magic spells that you cast that make a complex and difficult problem go away. It just doesn't happen very often in our political system, and I think that we shouldn't be under any illusions about the character and the partisan inclinations, among other things, of this current Supreme Court as it is constituted. That said, this is not a crazy thing for a democracy to do. This is something.
That's not a crazy thing for our democracy, which isn't a democracy, which is an oligarchy. That's why they're doing it, because this is an oligarchy. This isn't a democracy. We don't have a great democracy like, say, Nicaragua.
Yeah, right.
Was a hallmark of post-war Germany after World War II. This is something that happened.
She's saying that disqualifying candidates from the ballot is a very normal thing for democracies to do. Listen to where she says they do it.
Was a hallmark of post-war Germany after
post-war Germany. They did that to keep Nazis off the ballot, people who committed genocides against Jews in concentration camps. She's equating Donald Trump and MAGA with that. And then she goes from that to guess what else?
This is something that was a hallmark of post-war Germany after World War II. This is something that happened to Jair Bolsonaro in Brazil.
That's unbelievable.
And she thinks it's okay that they're doing it to Bolsonaro in Brazil. So do you want to know what happened in Brazil? I'll explain it to you. In Brazil, they hated the establishment, the corporate establishment, the same one that runs America, runs Brazil. They wanted to get rid of the lefty, which was Lula. So what they did is they put Lula in prison.
Right, yeah, right.
They put Lula in prison, like they're trying to do to Trump right now. They put Lula in prison, and they thought that the center-right guy would win, right? So they thought that Marco Rubio would win, or they thought that
right.
or Chris Christie or Nikki Haley would win. But instead, what happened in Brazil when they put Lula in prison? Bolsonaro won, which is the Trump of Brazil. And they freaked out. They're like, oh, shit, the far-right guy won instead of the center-right guy. So what did they do? They then let Lula back out of prison because they knew Lula was the only guy who could beat Bolsonaro. They have that election. He beats Bolsonaro just barely. And then they make it illegal for Bolsonaro to run for president again, just like they're doing to Donald Trump now. Now, I'm not a fan of Bolsonaro. I'm not a fan of Donald Trump, but I'm smart enough to see the game that's being played here, that the establishment is now making their political enemies criminal and criminalizing any political movement they can't handle. And this is happening since Brexit and Donald Trump's election. They did it in Pakistan. They did it in Brazil. And now they're doing it in the good old US of A. And Rachel Maddow uses these as examples that make this okay instead of something that should set your hair on fire about how undemocratic and oligarchical this is. This is what fascists do. This is what dictators do. This is what authoritarian governments do. And they're the mask has been ripped off in America. You see that you don't live in a democracy. You live in an authoritarian oligarchy that is run by the deep state and a handful of billionaires. One of them is Bill Gates.
Would you, now I don't want to be dramatic, but would you say this violates norms?
I would say this violates norms.
I'm trying to think of what norms he actually violated besides like being good at roasting the opponents.
Well, what the norms he violated? Here's the norm he violated. He wouldn't do war. He ran on an anti-interventionist platform, and then he wouldn't do war the way the deep state wanted him to. And so for that, they russiagated him. They impeached him twice, and now they've indicted him 4 times, and now they're kicking him off ballots because he won't do war the way they wanted him to.
I mean, it sounds like bigger violations of norms.
He's the only president in my lifetime didn't start a war.
Well, I'll never forgive him. I said today he was a president, and the next day I said today he's not a president.
Yeah, so remember when he bombed Syria? They go, oh, today he became a president.
Yeah, the good times?
And that was the truth.
Yeah.
In the establishment's eyes.
Hey, the kid popped his cherry, like he's in the mob.
Yeah, that's exactly
That's what they do. You got to... Mike, you got to pull one in.
Recently, this is something that our own Congress did in 1868 after our own Civil War, specifically to preclude anybody from holding office in this country who had engaged in insurrection against this country. And so it's not...
How'd that turn out, by the way?
Heard of, but it would be an incredible wild card.
So, by the way, he didn't engage in an insurrection. And you know how I know? He's never been charged with that crime. And he's never been convicted of that crime. And by the way, here's the 14th Amendment. It also contains a due process clause. So they're saying they're doing this because of the 14th Amendment. They've kicked him off the ballot. Here's what it says in the 14th Amendment. No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities of citizens of the United States, nor shall any state deprive any person of life, liberty, or property without due process of law, nor deny to any person within its jurisdiction the equal protection of the laws. Now, I'm not a big fancy lawyer, Kurt, but I'm pretty sure Trump was never charged or convicted with an insurrection. Obviously, I know he's guilty. I'm just saying, not legally.
Yeah, if he did it, even that guy that looks like Adam 22 that's prosecuted in New York, that guy didn't bring up. He knew he couldn't bring that kind
That's
of
right.
Yeah.
Why is none of he's been indicted 4 times, 92 felony counts. Not one of those felony counts are an insurrection. Isn't that weird?
He overvalued his house in Florida. Oh, I hope they get him on that thing that didn't happen at all. And then what's the other one? He asked his lawyer to look into that.
Yeah.
With the election, which
so
is
that,
also
so
not,
I guess so. Yeah, they are trying to say is that part of
that's
it?
Georgia.
So in Georgia, are they? So they're using the RICO statute in Georgia. Is it to say he committed an insurrection? Is that what that is?
No.
No.
That's to say he tried to overturn the election.
He tried to overturn the election,
which
illegally.
Yeah.
That's what that is.
Which he didn't. You can ask your lawyer.
Which
to
he
look into
didn't.
it.
You can.
Though Letitia James announced the judge thinks he's guilty already.
That's right.
And now they're deliberating. That's wow. That's amazing. That's great lawyering.
Okay, so there's Rachel Maddow. It's like she works for Pravda. It's like she works for the oligarchs and she's there. Why do you think they had to get her on the phone? Hey, because she gets $35 million a year to $100,000 a day to lie to you.
I'm going on stage at Raytheon. I can't stay long.
Yeah. She probably had to take a break from going on stage at a Raytheon convention, which is where she goes. She goes to arms manufacturers conventions and give speeches.
We need more women in missiles.
Come see us do a live stand-up show. We'll be in Venice, California, Palmdale, California, Omaha, Des Moines, Milwaukee, Lansing, Bend, Oregon, Portland, Oregon, Seattle, Washington, Boston, Massachusetts, and we're going to Europe. Do you live in Europe? We're going to be there. Go to jimmydore.com for a link for all those tickets.